Welcome everyone to World Series News. What we have is probably the most sensational headline you will ever see on any network, at least in 2021 and perhaps ever. What am I talking about? How about this? Bill Gates has just been charged with murder in India. Now, to report on this story is an incredibly talented writer who runs her own blog called the Starfire Codes. The information will appear on the screen shortly. Her name is Demi. I'm going to bring her on now. This information is so hot, the keyboard is on fire. Demi, are you there?
Yeah.
Very good, thanks, Demi. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Welcome to the show. Can you tell me what you've discovered?
I couldn't believe it at first either. You know, you hear so many reports of this and they end up being false. This was coming straight from the Indian Bar Association, from the website of the Indian Bar Association. They had posted the points that they were making in the case, and saying that they were charging him with mass murder because they were coerced into taking the shot. So according to their law, you can give the shot, but if the person is coerced into taking it, and then they have a problem or they die, then the person who created the shot is liable. So because he put the money forward into AstraZeneca, he's liable for that. So they're going after him for it, which actually, considering he's had so much going on, with the Indian government in the past because of the polio shots there, you would figure that might be the first cases that would come forward, and sure enough, there it was. So.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? So it relates specifically to the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
So the connection there is that he funded AstraZeneca. Is that correct?
Yes, and so they're bringing charges against him based on that. They had a 23-year-old pass away and a 33-year-old doctor who was named in it. And she was from a different area. The first person, the 23-year-old, was from an area where he had taken the shot because he felt like he couldn't travel unless he did, because of the way that they have it set up with the railways, and the railways were making it mandatory. So that was the coercion angle that they were using, and then he ended up passing away from it. So I don't think that, they were proving that he wouldn't have taken it had he not needed it in order to travel back and forth on the rails.
Now, in the report, was there some reference to the fact that the victim believed that the vaccine would protect him?
Yes, absolutely. For both of them, actually, for him and the young doctor who passed away, and her family actually went to the WHO and asked for them to investigate, and that's how all of this came back around. So her part of this is integral as well. And what they did was they broke it down according to Indian law, which is, it's very heavily pivoted on whether or not the person was coerced. So that's exactly it. That's what they were going after with the 23-year-old, with the railways, and with the doctor thinking that she couldn't work, which they have precedent set now. In one of the areas, the High Court deemed it. They wanted to still have people get vaccinated, but they didn't want people to be coerced into it because it's against their law, and that was the judgment that they made. So according to their constitution, they can't be coerced. But they had something strange in there where it was about, making it compulsory without coercing people. How do you do that? To make it compulsory, not 100% of the people are going to want to. So it would, take some level of coercion to make anything compulsory. So
that's exactly right. We have the same situation here in Australia, where informed consent is the only mandatory thing, not the vaccine. And our Prime Minister has come out on numerous occasions and said that we don't have a thing called mandatory vaccination in this country, but then he's gone on to say, but we will do everything in our power to make sure that you take it. So we have a vaccine status here of 85% fully vaccinated in the 12 plus age group already in this country, and they're pushing it in New South Wales, where I'm from, to 95%. And that's what they're trying to get to here. So we can tell already that around 30% of any population will just take it. But we know that around about 40% of the population have taken the vaccine to satisfy a mandate, to go traveling, to protect Nana, every other reason other than they're scared of the virus. So it's quite interesting or on the table to tell us that this coercion prosecution strategy in India, should it take hold and create a precedent, is going to be the most massive situation around the world as if it takes, because, and it also means that other countries should also want to test this exact same thing. And for mine, I always wondered what this GESARA trigger would be in a positive financial reset as opposed to the World Economic Forum Great Reset that would justify it. And it seems to me that if this were to be the case, then all governments around the world should and would be held accountable. And this would force the greatest compensation in history, which could only be satisfied via a true financial reset. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I know that people were having to sign waivers to even get the shot in some places. I think that that's true here. And they were waiving their liability, and some governments have waived the liability of the companies so that no one could go after them. So depending upon the country that you're in, it may already be set up in such a way. Like in the United States, we have vaccination court, which not a lot of people know about, but all of the liability cases and things like that in the past, well before there was COVID, billions of dollars were being paid out through these vaccination courts. And a lot of people have no idea that that even existed, or that there was such a problem that they had to create, multi-billion-dollar vaccination courts in order to handle all of these cases that were coming through on the other vaccines that existed regardless. And often that's because what they're putting in them, and how young they're giving it to the children. It's causing all sorts of issues that people aren't aware of before they bring their kids in for it, and then they end up with a problem.
Yes, look, for those that aren't aware, the website in the US is hrsa.gov. And if you go to that website, you can actually click on the vaccine injury database, and it will tell you all of the vaccines listed, all of the payouts. The last time I checked was a few months back, and there were some 7,500 payouts of well over $5 billion. So they're looking at some enormous amount of around $600,000 per vaccine injury payout in those vaccine courts. Now, people say, "Oh, only 7,000 payouts," but what you need to consider is that for every vaccine injury that occurs, you have to get your doctor to support you, and that's virtually impossible, as we're seeing now with the current injuries. You then have to find a legal team to also back you, and you need to be able to get it up into a court of law. And from there, it has to be proven and deemed responsible enough to mount a $600,000 payout. So these are substantial claims. And that's why we often hear the statistic that only 1 in 100 even gets reported. So it feels like maybe only 1 in even 1,000 would even get to a courtroom, let alone a payout. So those numbers are significant, and the magnitude is literally off the planet.
Absolutely. And just even getting it to the part where you're presenting your case is very difficult, because you have to prove that it was the vaccine, in fact, that did it. And it's such a perfect storm of different factors that they might be able to argue against, that that could cause those same symptoms in the same person, that you might not even be able to prove that it was specifically the vaccine unless something happened very rapidly right after, and you could say it's within this window of time, which is something that they were doing with the counts, for NHS in the UK. Someone was trying to get a FOIA request through for the number of deaths, and this is something that we reported on Starfire. what had happened was the FOIA request was for specifically 28 days of data. They didn't have 28 days of data. They had 21 days of data, but instead of saying that they had 21 days of data, they said they didn't have it. So they had to keep refiling for it until finally they figured out, why that was happening. They were using it to punt it back, to delay giving them that data. Whereas, if you have 21 days of data, that's fine too. You can compare it to the same 21 days and figure that out, based on the same number of days and amount of time. So, it was still useful. It's enough days to have some sort of comparison there. But they were saying that they didn't keep the data, but they didn't keep 28 days of the data specifically.
And this is the beautiful trick of authority, in that if you control all the information and you have all the power, you can manipulate anything in order to deliver the narrative that has been set. And no one does it better than Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, exactly. And the new book just came out, Robert Kennedy's book, and that's it goes in deep and really exposes a lot that's gone on and everything, and takes it back to the beginning of everything, that even into AIDS, which he was working on as well, and developing for that, and moving forward from there.
It is significant, isn't it, that if we talk back to Fauci being at the forefront of the entire AIDS epidemic.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but I've been reading the 900-page book by Charles Ortleb from the New York Native, who pretty much documented every single article throughout that period. And I'll summarize it by saying that there's an entire chapter in the book that's called Anthony Fauci, the Bernie Madoff of medicine. And you need not say much more than that to realize who we're dealing with.
Right.
But if any one bureaucrat, and he is the highest paid bureaucrat in the entire United States, can be the same chief health advisor to 7 or 8 presidents, you are dealing with a yes man. There's no two ways about it.
Absolutely. That's a politician, not a scientist.